The History of Parliament is a research project creating a comprehensive account of the English, British and UK Parliament from its origins in the 13th century. It is generally regarded as one of the most ambitious and well-researched projects in British history. Our published volumes contain authoritative constituency studies and biographies of parliamentarians from the 14th to the 19th centuries. Our current research projects, which span from the medieval to the modern, continue this focus on locality and biography. Our staff also publish regular short articles on our blog and are always happy to respond to your queries via email or social media. Our engagement team spoke to some of the History's research staff from across the time periods about how the History of Parliament approaches local history and how local historians can utilise our resources, all of which are freely accessible at historyofparliamentonline.org.
We are studying members and peers both in their local context and obviously in terms of their political activities at the centre, at Westminster, where the Parliament happened to meet. But we are, of course, also looking at their activities in their own locality, their management of their estates, their relationship with their neighbours, both, I suppose, on a social par, but also their relationship with lesser or greater neighbours in many respects.
We cover a very long chronological time span, so my project's looking at 1832 to 68, but it's also possible to go back in time and think about how a particular locality changed, how the politics of that particular place changed, and what factors influenced those changes.
When we're researching them, our focus is on identifying who is participating in elections as candidates, as voters, as patrons, or rather more indirectly as local pressure groups or anybody who's an interested party.
Local history is really important for the history of Parliament because, of course, we're dealing with a representative institution. The MPs all represented different parts of the country, and in the House of Lords, the Lords and the bishops had estates scattered around the place. So we have to understand how the localities worked. We have to understand how they worked in terms of their estates, in terms of the people they had to be nice to get elected in the first place. And we get a really good sense then of that sense of national politics at a local level.
Our 1832 to 1868 House of Commons project, we're studying the 401 constituencies of England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. And it's the constituency which is the starting point for our research, looking at the elections and then the MPs who represented that constituency. So our research is very much grounded in locality.
And to speak to people who know the localities, who know the oddities of the geography, can you actually walk as the crow flies between two places? This is not local knowledge that we can't hope to gather and that local people who we meet in the localities can offer us.
I mean, one thing I would particularly be interested to collaborate with local historians on is the occasional appearance of women voters. I mean, this is, centuries before people think women could vote. And yet we know that in certain locations, because of property qualifications, this did happen.
At the moment, we're working on the House of Lords in the 18th century, and we find local record offices really important in adding that extra bit of colour, extra bit of depth to the research that we're doing. I mean, for instance, I was working recently at Devon Record Office, and I was looking through a whole file full of material for an election, and it included things like accounts for the ribbons that were being supplied in order to make up rosettes for the different candidates. And it gives you a sense of the material culture involved in the electoral process.